Hey folks, and welcome to another video from A Plain Truth for You and Well Heeled Too. I just want to quickly go over the myth of peak oil, the myth that we are running out, the myth that the drones attacked from Iran, Saudi Arabia, and now the Trumpster and all the Trumpettes are calling for more war. How is it that one man declare war on anybody he wants? How is it that one man can say they control the world with whatever they decide to wake up in their boxer shorts and I'm going to go bomb this country. I'm going to put up these walls. I'm going to put these laws. I'm going to make these tariffs. How does one person be allowed to do that? Because you watch him and you talk about him and you give him credit. I'm done with him. Everybody should be done with the political spectrum, because it's a spectrum of ignorance that everybody that votes or talks about these people, like I'm doing right now, are ignorant. I mean, politics, many ticks, get it? It's any type of conversation about politics, it always goes to legal. We're gonna impeach the president. Well, it goes to legal. We should be talking about legalese, Roman Latin law, Black's dictionary, being out to sea, the straw man. But that's not the point of the video today. The point is, there's no such thing as fossil fuels. Dinosaurs never existed until 1847 when they made up the word. And the Geneva Convention, the smartest man in the industry in 1892, J.D. Rockefeller, paid scientists to call oil fossil fuel to induce world price for oil. Actually, oil is actually the second most prevalent liquid on Earth, next to water, and regenerates within the Earth faster than it can ever be depleted. And I got Colonel Fletcher Prouty, who's going to be talking at the end of this video, telling you exactly that. Abiotic oil, folks, that's the game. That oil is actually a renewable primordial syrup continually manufactured by the earth under hot conditions and pressure. It migrates towards the surface, is attacked by bacteria, making it appear to have an organic origin dating back to the dinosaurs. They can also make oil out of algae. What are we seeing all around the world? Algae problems, right? So it's all been a big lie. And this is Prouty, who you're going to hear in a video in a minute. Colonel Fletcher Prouty, Chief of Special Operations, Joint Chief of Staff under Kennedy. Prouty reveals how the deception was advanced in the 70s by Kissinger and Rockefeller, was seeking world oil price. I remember in those days we had to get our gas. If we had an even plate, we could go get gas on one day. If we had an odd plate, we could get it on others. I'd be driving my mom's car to go get in lines for getting gas. Oil was going up, and you remember back in 2007 when oil prices got up to $147 a barrel, and now we're seeing oil prices here in California up to $4 a barrel on average. They just raised taxes again, taxing the oil. Oh, we got to fix your roads. Prouty reveals how the deception was advanced further at on world oil price. So here's the articles. But what I also wanted to bring to your attention was that we've had free energy for a long time. This is the Weidencliff Tesla Tower that JP Morgan destroyed because it was free energy. But also what we're learning now is they've had free energy back in the Tartarian days, 200, 300 years ago. These magnetrons inside the domes of all the Tartarian empires were magnetrons, were Wi-Fi energy devices. We have evidence everywhere that there was electricity being used 100 years ago everywhere. Look at all the cable cars. You want to see energy devices, folks? What looks similar? Those are the power plants of today on the right, and on the left are the power plants of the old world, the Tartarian Empire. You see how similar they all look? All the ones with all the towers at the top. Wi-Fi energy devices, folks. That's their communication devices and their energy devices as laid out by the Freemasons in their drawings. So these are the high buildings of what they call the old world, which could have been just as recently as 200 years ago, we're learning. Here's the Washington Monument in the background, and that's 555 feet, or for you occultists, 6,666 inches tall. The Great Pyramids, 500 feet. But look at the spires. Look at all these spires, not just how they put them together and how they built them, but these were Wi-Fi, these were energy devices, these were communication devices with this elaborate structures. Oh, built with horse and buggies, they tell us. But look at the communication devices. Look at all the Wi-Fi towers at the top. These were energies. Look at the domes, the Tartarian domes that you see all around the world. And then they could also harness energy from the water. They could harness energy from the sun, and they had great sailing ships that sailed with electricity on the water. They used conductive ether, the electromagnetic ether in the air. They knew how to do this. They've known how to do it for a long time. So this is a 2,000-year-old coin. This is showing sprites, energy sprites. You see how the signatures of these energy beings, these are dorjis in Tibetan. These were the energy devices you see around everywhere. We're going to get into a lot more, but these were the conducting devices they used. But notice how they're similar to the electrical power plants of today. They were used on the ships, and these are real pictures of sprites that were taken in the sky. Nobody quite knew what they were. Now we know. These are the energy devices. These are the sprites they were using. It's everywhere. We've been lied to about everything, but we have free energy, and they had it as they had it 200 years ago, 300 years ago, that we're learning on. I mean, look at this picture, folks. Look at the top. See the conducting towers at the top? I mean, this is all revisionist history that we're relearning today about free energy. So when you hear Trump and all the rest of them say we're running out of oil and they're jacking the oil prices, the reason they're going to batteries is because they're getting rid of the petrodollar, the dollar that's based on the petro, and coming out with a cryptocurrency based on gold. So you know, look at the tower, the sun, the crescent moon, the double cross here. Notice the double cross. These are conducting towers, folks. This is what they used for. They had free energy way back in. All right, so what I want to get you is the Colonel Prouty's talk about abiotic oil and how there's no such thing as dinosaurs, and there's abundant oil. Don't let them jerk your chain anymore. Anyway, plain truth out. Catch the next video. Peace, and love one another always, especially in these difficult, changing times.
You mentioned in one of your last talks that petroleum wasn't what we thought it was, that it wasn't a fossil fuel, that it didn't come from fossil animal.
Yeah.
Is it just a mineral? Is it a mineral like any other mineral? Is that how it what would you say? What's the origin of
You see,
petroleum?
when they first found petroleum, because they were beginning to make motors and needed on axles of wheels on railroad trains and all that sort of thing, and remember, trains started in the beginning of the 19th century, then oil went from just a lubricant to a fuel, and it made it valuable. And Rockefeller happened to be the smartest man in the business at the time, but he made most of his money, or much of it, off the transport of the petroleum as well as selling it. But one thing they realized was, because oil is putting a price on oil is like putting a price on a pail of water. You know, no initial cost. It's in the ground, and in those days they were, some of it, almost what you'd call surface mining the oil. They didn't go down deep. So in order to get the price up, they hit on the idea that they would have to make it appear to be scarce. That after we take the next few barrels out, we're probably going to have to close as well. You know, that kind of thing. Well, a very fortuitous event. In 1892, there was a convention in Geneva of scientists to determine what organic substances are. Well, the definition of organic is a substance with hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. And so it's usually a living substance, a tree. You analyze a dead tree, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen, and grass, and so on, living things. Animals, we are hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. So at this Geneva Convention, Rockefeller took advantage of sending some scientists over who said, oil, petroleum, is hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. Therefore, it must be derived from the spoiling, the rotting of formerly living matter. And playing the game properly, when this scientific convention was over, they defined oil as the residue from formerly living matter. Well, that makes it a fossil fuel. I don't know why they decided to use the word fossil, but it says formerly living matter is fossil. Well, of course, today, and another thing we should know is that there has never been a fossil, a real fossil, found below 16,000 feet. And you can't argue at 16,000 there's a level line, because someplace the ground sinks and so on. But 16 is what the scientists say, 16,000. We mine oil, or we drill for oil, at 30,000, 33,000, 28,000 every day of the week. So right there we rule it out that it isn't fossil fuel. It's called fossil fuel for the minds of the public to feel that it is an asset that is running out, being depleted. We talk about depletion allowance, which is a lot of, and actually, if you know the world's oil supply, you know that it is not going to run out for an awfully long time. It is the second most prevalent liquid on Earth. And we haven't begun to dig. Well, with all that background, you see, the people in charge of the petroleum business, for perfectly reasonable business things, like any other man in the business, wants to keep his price as high as he can get away with. And the way to do is just say, well, there's no more. The last barrel is going to cost $1,000, and then it's all done. And they preach that stuff. What bothers me is that in geology books, it's in there. The geologists say it's a fossil fuel. Somehow they've been bought. I mean, I went to a 4-year federal staff energy seminar run by the government of the United States during the so-called energy crisis. I was the participant that represented the railroad industry. The airline industry was there. Every AA, administrative assistant of senators and congressmen, was there. The CIA was there, the Defense Department was there, the State Department was there. Sometimes sitting right in front of me in the row would be Henry Kissinger with his friend, the head of Department of Defense. That's too bad, I can't put the names with them. But anyway, people like that, top men in the government, sitting there listening to the Federal Staff Energy Seminar. Well, what this was doing is for 4 years, they were teaching a propaganda line to the leading people in this country, and therefore to the leading people in the world, when you include the Schlesingers, Kissinger and Schlesinger, among others. And the object of it was, as Kissinger used in his own terms when it was time for him to speak, to create a world price for oil. In other words, not 30 cents a gallon here and 90 cents a gallon there, but let's get a world price. That's their goal, and they're trying to do that for wheat and everything else. We don't realize what the controls are, whether it's oil or some of these other things. Almost everything today is being categorized at the highest price they can possibly make it go. And so calling petroleum a fossil fuel is the basis for this system with respect to petroleum. And I don't know if the name Arthur Kantrowitz rings any bell. Arthur Kantrowitz is the head of the Kantrowitz Labs set up by the Avco company near Boston, scientific laboratories. And a great man in the scientific world. And Kantrowitz and I were sitting at a table at this seminar once, and the table happened to be all young college grad, PhD geologists. And so just to get a conversation started, I turned to Kantrowitz and I said, Arthur, what do you think about this foolishness of these speakers talking about fossil fuel? And it was kind of put up. He started laughing. He said, you know, that gets me. He says, I don't have a geology degree, but he had 1,000 other degrees. And he said, I don't understand. He said, you'd think that these heads, these other fellows at the table, we did it on purpose, start listening, you know. And he asked, he said, are you gentlemen? He says, you're here at the meeting. Are you gentlemen by any chance geologists? And one fellow, yes, I am. And the other one, yeah. He said, well, why don't you tell me? He said, why is oil? You know, and he went on like that. We brought the house down because nobody could argue with Kantrowitz. He like Einstein. People aren't going to. And he told him right there. He said, just drop it. But it's in all the books and in all the papers. But it started from that strange meeting in 1892, a scientific convention. I have a big, thick scientific encyclopedia put out by the Divan Ostrand Company that's about 15 years old now, but it has the whole story of the conference. It doesn't have the Rockefeller part, but it has the whole story of how they straightened out organic chemicals and how it was all figured, and they've got petroleum right in there.
Amazing. Amazing. So
these aren't accidental things, you see. There's a dollar sign behind almost everything.